All right, piano fans, you're ready to inject some serious soul into your playing. Today, we're taking a deep dive into 10 easy blues piano licks that'll have you channeling your inner Ray Charles in no time.
Oh, yeah?
Our source,
Mm.
a YouTube video from iMusicAcademy, a channel run by a seasoned blues pianist who's clearly passionate about sharing his love for these iconic sounds.
What's really cool is that the instructor focuses on a common blues progression, C9, F13, G13, as the foundation for all 10 licks.
Okay.
This makes it much easier to grasp, even if you're new to blues piano.
So instead of being overwhelmed by a ton of complex chords, you're learning within a familiar framework. I like it.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Those 9th and 13th chords he's using, those are what give blues music that signature richness and depth.
Okay, break those down for me a bit.
Sure.
What makes a ninth or 13th chord different, and how do they make it sound bluesy?
Think of it like this. A C major chord is like the base of your blues sound. A C9 adds the 9th note of the C major scale, which is a B, on top of that C major chord. That extra note adds just a touch of bluesy color.
Okay.
Now, a C13 throws in the 13th note of the scale, which is an A, making it even richer and more complex.
So you're essentially adding layers of flavor to the basic chords, and those added notes are what make it distinctly blues.
Precisely. The instructor actually demonstrates this on the piano, so you can hear how those extra notes create that classic bluesy sound.
And the first lick he teaches, the instant blues trick, seems like a perfect example of that.
It really is.
Yeah.
He starts with a simple C9 chord, and then emphasizes the flat 7th note, which is a bleib,
Right.
before resolving it to the major third, which is an E.
Really puts you in my opinion, into that bluesy feel. Da 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 da. So from here, flat 7 down to the third is a really nice note to go to, a really nice phrase. Da 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 da. And if I wanted to, I could extend it. Ba da 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 da. I could do an enclosure. Da 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 bum. Ba da 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 da. I could go that way. I went all the way back up there, so. And that time I went all the way down.
It's such a classic blues move because that back and forth between the flat 7th and major third creates that essential tension and release that defines the blues.
It's like that musical tug of war that keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much emotion you can pack into just those two notes. It's like a perfectly timed bluesy sigh.
Exactly. It's about capturing the essence of the blues with just a few well-placed notes. And what's impressive is that the instructor dives into why this works,
Okay.
explaining that this particular note combination creates a sense of yearning and resolution.
It's like he's giving us a peek behind the curtain of music theory, revealing the magic behind the notes.
And this is a perfect example of how the instructor gives away some real golden nuggets in a free YouTube video. It's clear this lick is a core concept from one of his paid courses, yet he's offering it here as a taste of what's possible.
He's definitely piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
Now, the second lick he covers, the third up, root down lick, seems incredibly versatile.
It is.
Good.
It focuses on the relationship between the notes, not just a fixed pattern.
Okay.
Means you can use it over any chord change.
Wow.
He demonstrates this by seamlessly moving the lick from a C chord to an F chord to a G chord.
So instead of memorizing a shape on the piano, you're understanding the underlying structure.
Yes.
Go. That takes you to the minor third. That works too. Also, this works. Right? That way I did an enclosure. An enclosure is kind of a jazzy thing where you go surround the target note, which is E, the third. Maybe I want to go ba da 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 ba da ba da. That went I went up from the third to the root. This way I'll go all the way down. And now I'll come back up. Now I'll go. Now that.
He's emphasizing adaptability, which is so important for any aspiring blues pianist. It's about learning to speak the language of the blues, not just reciting phrases.
Speaking of speaking the language, can we talk about Ray Charles for a second?
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, and the instructor's excitement when he breaks down a Ray Charles-inspired lick is contagious.
Yeah, it's clear he's a huge admirer, too.
Yeah.
He focuses on the unique fingering technique that Ray Charles was known for, which he calls the down-home technique.
Okay.
It involves sliding the fingers between certain notes, creating that smooth, soulful sound that Ray Charles was known for.
It's that signature glide that just oozes with soul, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the instructor points out that this technique might feel a bit unusual for beginners.
Yeah.
Especially those who are used to more traditional piano playing.
It's like he's anticipating those moments of, wait, what? And saying, don't worry, it'll click with practice.
And he shares a really relatable anecdote about his own experience. He admits that when he first started learning classical music, sliding his fingers between notes felt completely foreign to him.
All right, anyway, Ray Charles lick. We're going to start right here. So what I'd say actually when we do this, it actually starts on the 5th. So I love it. And that's how you get that sound that you're looking for of that middle finger sliding down. And that's something you have to get used to. So we're going to practice like this. And if you practice going 1, 2, 2, 4, 5, with this same idea of going to the 5th, you can also go to the 3rd.
It's refreshing to hear that even seasoned pros had to work at it. It's a good reminder that everyone's on their own musical journey.
Absolutely. And speaking of journeys, the instructor brings up a crucial concept for any aspiring blues pianist.
Okay.
Transposition.
And for those of us who might not be familiar with that term, what exactly is transposition and why is it so important in the context of blues piano?
So transposition simply means being able to play something in a different key without having to relearn the whole thing.
Right.
Imagine learning a lick in C major, but then you want to jam along to a song in major. Transposition allows you to take that same lick and shift it to fit that new key.
So it's like having a master key that unlocks all the musical doors instead of being stuck with just one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the instructor points out that many blues licks are easily transposable because they rely on intervals,
Okay.
the distance between notes,
Right.
rather than fixed positions on the piano.
Oh.
He even demonstrates how, with just a slight adjustment or two, you can play these licks in all 12 keys.
Just because one of the exercises is literally the idea of the octave, so C up to C, but then this motion right here, so you have So I've created some trio exercises where you go boo da ba da boo da ba da ba da 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 boo ba ba da ba da, and all I'm doing is C up to C, then I come down to the flat 7, 6, flat 7, and then I get into the blues scale, which is the first 5 notes. That's a great exercise to practice. So you go.
That's amazing. It reminds me of something else he said that really stuck with me. He called it a quick tip, but it felt like a major revelation. You don't need to learn a million different licks. You just need to learn a few really well and understand how to adapt them.
That's the beauty of music theory. It unlocks a world of possibilities. Now, speaking of theory, there's a question from the YouTube comments that touches on a concept that often trips up even experienced musicians.
Yeah.
The use of minor and major scales within a blues progression.
Yeah, I saw that comment too.
Yeah.
It can definitely feel a bit like a musical mystery.
A viewer was confused about seemingly mixing minor and major elements within the same progression, and the instructor's answer was fascinating. He explained that in blues piano, it's not always about strictly adhering to one scale or the other.
Right.
It's more about outlining the core structure of each chord, which are often triads,
Okay.
and using notes from related scales to create that bluesy flavor.
Okay, I'll be honest. When I first started dabbling in blues, that whole major-minor interplay had me totally lost. How would you explain it in a way that clicks for someone who's still wrapping their head around music theory?
Okay, so imagine you're building a house.
Okay.
Your triads, the basic 3-note chords, are your foundation. They provide structure and stability. Now, you might decide to add some flair.
Okay.
A bay window here, a French door there. Those extra elements are like the notes you borrow from the minor or major scale. They add character and style, but the foundation, those solid triads, is what holds everything together.
That's a great analogy. So it's not about randomly throwing in minor or major notes. It's about understanding how they relate to those core chords, those triads, to create the desired sound.
Precisely. It's like the instructor said earlier, it's about understanding the language of the blues, not just mimicking what you hear.
And speaking of learning from the best, the instructor does mention his other courses and his paid Chord Academy. While we're not here to give a sales pitch, it's clear he's put a lot of thought into creating a supportive learning environment for aspiring blues pianists.
Yes, and he emphasizes the value of community and connection, mentioning that he regularly hosts live workshops and Q&A sessions for his students.
Right.
He seems genuinely invested in helping them succeed.
It's like he's created a space where people can bond over their shared passion for the blues, whether they're just starting out or, have been tickling the ivories for years.
And that sense of community can be so valuable, especially when you're learning something new. It's about encouraging each other, sharing tips and tricks, and celebrating those aha moments along the way.
Absolutely. Now, even with all this talk about courses and communities, what I really appreciate is how the instructor continually emphasizes the importance of mastering the fundamentals. He keeps coming back to that idea of choosing one lick, really owning it, and letting that mastery build your confidence.
Yes. He even uses a great analogy, saying it's like learning a new dance move.
Okay.
You wouldn't try to learn an entire routine at once. You'd break it down step by step, practicing each move until it becomes second nature.
It's about quality over quantity, really understanding the nuances of each lick and how it contributes to the overall feel of the blues.
Exactly. He encourages his listeners to experiment, to play around with different rhythms to add their own personal flair to the licks.
It's about taking those foundational elements and making them your own, finding your own voice within the language of the blues. And that brings us back to something we touched on earlier, the power of one.
Yes. The instructor's final thought is so simple, yet profound. He reminds us that you don't need to have every scale memorized or every lick under your belt to start creating soulful blues music. Just pick one thing, one lick, one chord progression, and really dive in. Master that one thing, and it'll open up a world of possibilities.
It's like he's saying, don't get overwhelmed, just get started. And you know what? I think that's the perfect note to end on.
I agree. It's a powerful reminder that the journey of 1,000 licks begins with a single note.
So to all you listeners out there, we challenge you. Pick one lick from this deep dive that speaks to you and make it your own experiment. Have fun! And who knows, maybe you'll discover your own instant blues trick that'll have everyone saying, wow, how'd they do that?
And remember, we'll be here for your next deep dive, ready to unpack more musical wisdom and help you expand your piano repertoire.
Until then, happy playing, everyone.